Good evening. Hello. Good evening. Thank you. Happy Thursday to you. Thank you guys for coming out to participate in this Macon Food Story event. I'll tell you a little bit about it, but first let me introduce myself. I am Sonya Green, the Engagement Reporter Coordinator for the Center for Collaborative Journalism at Mercer University. And the Center for Collaborative Journalism is a collaborative of media partners that include The Telegraph, that also include Georgia Public I did a little wave at Sandra, the editor of The Telegraph. Georgia Public Broadcasting Macon. We don't have Grant or Josephine in the building, but that's our radio partner. And then we have a television partner, 13 WMAZ. Mr. Tubb back here. And Amir, yeah. So the partnership is all of us together, and we come together and we do these projects. And this year we decided to focus on food. So this year we decided that we wanted to talk about food, and we wanted to talk about it in a couple of different frameworks: history, culture, but then also talking about access and health. And that's how we arrived at where we are today. So we launched the project last September with an event with Michael Twitty, and he came and talked about history and culture, and we've done some reporting throughout. And I'm going to share a little piece of that with you, and also bring up the reporter from The Telegraph, Samantha Max, to kind of just talk a little about some of the other reporting that she's done. And then we'll get into a discussion with the panel, who are all here with some really great resources, community resources around food, and in general have their own food stories that we're looking forward to hearing a little bit more about. So without further ado, I'm going to play the video.
The Now Baking Kroger with a basic shopping list. Along with milk, bread, eggs, chicken, bananas, apples, carrots, lettuce, beans, and cereal. See, we've got a gas station right here. Hi. Candy. Beef jerky. I'll write that down as some form of protein. I only found 2 items on my grocery list, and both were more expensive than at Kroger. This is on our list. So I headed over to the Family Dollar across the street. Candy, plenty of different pastries. Oh, peanut butter. That's a good thing for the list, actually. Alright, we've got eggs. Okay, so we've got like some pre-cooked chicken. Tyson's. Here's our fruit section. In my quest for fresh fruits and vegetables, I made one more stop, 1.5 miles from the old Kroger. My store had everything I needed and more. Fresh produce, a full meat and poultry section, even non-essentials like spices, sauces, and avocados. Only 99 cents. That's not too bad. But my groceries cost over $6 more than at Kroger. Ooh, pickled eggs. Yum. Oh, here. Calculate in the cost of transportation if you don't want to trek the extra 1.5 miles, and those dollar signs add up. One shopper told me she spends 2 hours on the bus to get to the Kroger across town. My store's manager said his sales have picked up too. But for many people who used to walk to the Pinona Kroger, fresh and affordable groceries are now out of reach.
So sorry, because I think that clipped at the very beginning, but this story was centered around food deserts, and I'm sure if you live in Macon, you know that the Kroger on Pionono closed, and so that was part of the that was what started a lot of our conversation, even talking about food, actually. But I'll bring Samantha up, and she can talk a little bit more about that story as well as some of the other reporting that she did.
Hi, everybody. My name's Samantha Max. I'm technically the health reporter at The Telegraph, but I report more on, I would say, the health of the overall community, looking into all different kinds of issues facing Bibb County and Middle Georgia as a whole. And I've gotten to be involved with the food project. And the story that you guys just saw the video from, that was one of my favorite stories I got to do. The Kroger on Pionono Avenue closed just over a year ago now. And that really kind of created a lot of different food deserts because it was kind of an anchor in the middle of many different neighborhoods that relied on that grocery store as their closest location to get food. So if you go to different neighborhoods kind of throughout the county, what you'll find is that there are these things called food deserts, which the technical definition is it's an area where basically there's no fresh and affordable groceries within a mile radius. And you might know that Bibb County is kind of a place designed for people who have cars. So if you have a car, we've got plenty of Publix and Kroger, and there's a Fresh Market, there are options out there. But if you rely on walking or public transportation, it can be almost impossible to get groceries because especially a lot of the neighborhoods that do rely most on pedestrian or public transportation to get to the grocery store, also a lot of the neighborhoods where there are the fewest options for groceries. So a few different things that I noticed in this reporting is that what's kind of taken their place is gas stations and Family Dollars or General Dollars. So, depending on which store you're at, you get some variability in what's available. At the gas station store, I basically couldn't find anything that was on the little shopping list that I made. They had canned chicken that kind of fit one of my categories, and that was pretty much it. The Family Dollars and the General Dollars, you can get a little bit more, but it's not fresh, and it might be a little bit more expensive than at your grocery store. So that was definitely really interesting to see. And I think there are some people even in this room that are working on solutions to help with getting people transported to grocery stores. But, I think that's definitely something interesting to think about. How do we build a community that allows people to get to the groceries that they need? And then, I've looked into a bunch of other food-related issues. I've done a few different stories on school lunches, comparing public schools and private schools and our district to different districts, and have found some interesting things about initiatives that schools are taking to have more locally grown food and healthier foods, and trying to make that palatable to kids because sometimes they really just want French fries. And then another story that I did pretty early on when I got to the Telegraph was about Meals on Wheels. You guys might know Meals on Wheels. It provides meals to the elderly and the homebound free of cost. So people who might not be able to have a nutritious meal every day, someone comes and actually delivers them food, and it's a huge asset in our community. But during the budget crisis last June, there was a chance that they were going to lose some of their funding, and they already have a huge backlog. I think it's several hundred people want to get the meals and can't get them right now, so looking into why that is and how that might be addressed. So those are some of the things I've been looking into. There are definitely, a lot more questions to be answered, so I'm excited to hear from this group of panelists, and thank you all.
Thank you, Samantha. So as she mentioned, we have the panelists here, and I'm just going to come sit down and chat with them. I have some questions, and we're going to talk, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves and tell a little bit about what they do. And I'm going to start it out, but certainly if you have questions, you also are welcome to ask them as well. So I'm definitely going to leave time for that. But Samantha kind of set it up that yes, indeed, I think part of the discussion, one of the things we arrived at was that obviously there are a lot of people in community doing things, and they are really trying to work on some solutions to food access and health. So part of what we wanted to do with this wrap-up event was really kind of focus a little more on that, because we felt like we focused a lot on kind of some of the challenges and obstacles, but we wanted to really kind of talk about some of the solutions and some of the resources that are available right here in the community that you may or may not know about, but we want to make sure that we put them out there. So I will introduce my panel. Fadil Muhammad, who is a community activist, and he was born in Pleasant Hill, but he lives here in East Macon, right?
Yes,
so he's got some interesting background that he's going to share with us about some of the work he's been doing. And Alesia Mays, who is a program assistant at the Expanded Food and Nutrition Program. Did I say it right? Education. I knew I was missing the education. Expanded Food Education Nutrition Program, EFNEP. And then also we have Gigi Weaver, and she's the creator of Macon Vegans. And I know she has some interesting things to tell us about being vegan in Macon that we can't wait to hear about. And then also Ryan Smith, who is a registered dietitian with North Central Health District. So thank you all for being here and being willing to have this conversation. I wanted to just start it off first because this is something we did in the very beginning of our project when we were just kind of getting into food and we were talking to people. One of the questions we were asking people was what was their own food story. So I know that's probably an off-guard question, but it doesn't have to be, you don't have to like think about it super hard, but even if there's just a food that you have a memory of that kind of brings to mind like what food means to you. And I just wanted to get you all to share a little bit about your own food story before we get into the other stuff, because I think that kind of also is always interesting to hear and share. So I will start with you, Ryan. You're at the end.
Sure. All right. So again, my name's Ryan Smith. A little bit of background on my food story. So I grew up as a military brat. My mom was active duty. So, you know, when you're looking at what types of food people enjoy eating, it's always rooted around their culture and where they grew up, you know, what they're used to, their family traditions. And being someone that moved around to a new state roughly every 2 to 3 years, my background is very varied. You know, I get a little bit of that Southern culture. I lived in California for a while. I was in Texas and New Mexico. And I think that everyone's food story is so different based on that location. So for me personally, I've just really enjoyed being able to be in so many different areas, learn from everyone's different cultures. Anytime you're in a new place, one of the best things you can do is dive in and immerse yourself in local food and get to know how people like to eat.
Awesome. Thank you. Gigi?
Hi. I am Hispanic. I grew up in a Cuban family. I'm first generation American from Cuban immigrants. Pork is really big in our culture. However, I actually never really liked it very much. I early on in my life made a connection with animals, and I never wanted to eat them. So that kind of started, I guess, my journey into veganism. I became a vegetarian when I was 15, which in our culture, 15 is considered kind of when you're going into adulthood. So that was when I was allowed to make that decision for myself. So I stopped eating meat at 15, and I became a vegan around 18, 19. It is interesting for me because I was always pretty much one of the only vegans. So as far as sharing the food with my family, friends, and community, that was not really something that I was able to do, really share my own food. I was always just, different in what they were, as compared to everybody else. But as I grew and the longer I've been eating this way, I have been able to share it more now. And I enjoy that. I enjoy being able to fellowship with people over food. It's a great way to socialize and just fellowship with others.
Thanks. Alesia?
My food story began at the age of 9. I was asked to go into the kitchen and start cooking by my mother. Of course, I said no. I wanted to read a book. But I realized that cooking, I grew a love for cooking. That's where it really began. And to this day, I really love to cook a lot. I'm always entertaining for friends. I'm kind of like Giada. Want to entertain, and people say, well, we're not coming to your house unless you're going to cook. So I take that as a compliment. Mm-hmm. But at the age of 9, I started cooking, and I also like to try different recipes and try new foods. And I like to go out and be around people who have the same interests that I have. And with me being born in Georgia, as a Georgia peach, that was one of the foods that I would eat because I had a lot of food allergies as a child, and I still have a few now. And I grew a love for that. And of course, my grandmother was one of the best bakers and cooks. She lived in Washington, D.C. And my family say I have the cooking gene that I inherited from her because she baked cakes for presidents.
Nice.
So I'm glad to carry on that family tradition as far as with cooking and serving with love. And I have a couple of my grandmother's aprons that I do cook in from time to time, which are very, very special to me. So I like to cook with love and give away things. I do give away some of the muffins and the banana breads that I bake to those who are in need. And that is my food story.
All right. George?
Yeah, I had no idea you were gonna ask a question like that.
I can't tell you everything I'm going to ask you.
Right. But there's a lot of food stories. I got so many food stories that I could come out here with.
Your most memorable.
Well, I mentioned this maybe is somewhat relative to changing your diet. For the past 36 years, I've been primarily a vegetarian, and I will eat fish, like grouper or salmon or red snapper maybe a couple of times, 3 times a year. But for the most part, I'm vegetarian, and it's I love avocados. I love vegetables. I love like lentils, navy beans. People think that you can't have enjoy your food if you don't have meat. A lot of people think that, and when I started out with the meat substitutes, and eventually I started to find out issues with the meat substitutes and the soy stuff and all that, and get away from the soy, and so now I'm just straight vegetables, and it's just really it agrees with me. It's over time. We try to figure out, well, what are the causes of cancer? What are the causes of? And one doctor, because I don't like to go to doctor. I go to doctor very rarely. Thank God I don't really have to. But I was asking him about prostate cancer. This was probably about 20 years ago, and what causes it. And of course, he didn't know. Like most of them, they don't know. He couldn't answer the question, but he said he hypothesized that maybe smoking, possibly meat, and possibly stress. These could give rise to it, and so it certainly was giving me more of an impetus to adhere to this vegetarian diet, and it's worked out very well. And one thing I can say too about vegetables, growing your own, relative to this food story. I mean, a solution that a lot of people have just become so departed from is just to put a seed in the ground yourself.
Yes, we're gonna.
We haven't got.
We're gonna go there though. I was gonna say, so I'm like, hold that, because we're definitely gonna. I definitely want to talk about
your own
a little bit more
corn
about that.
and your own tomatoes. Your own Silver Queen. Nothing tastes better than your own stuff that you grow yourself.
Okay. All right. Well, see, that's interesting. You got different stories. So military, Cuban, grandma baking bacon with 9, and you transitioning, all very different palettes. We have some lovely palettes up here. Okay, so Ryan, I want to come back to you because kind of piggybacking, going back to Sam's story though, one of the things that I talked to all of you about was food deserts. And that was really a lot of what we talked about when we first started this project. And when you're in a food desert, your options are limited, as we've kind of, watched Sam's journey. And you work with communities in trying to help them have alternatives and kind of find alternatives. So I wanted you to talk a little bit about your work with the community, and especially as it relates to communities who are dealing with food desert issues.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I'm a registered dietitian, and I work with North Central Health District, which is comprised of 13 different counties in the area here, one of which is, of course, macon-bibb, and that's where I live myself. And the work that I do ranges from things like community education, whether it's classes or health fairs, advertising the services that we provide, but we also offer one-on-one nutritional counseling, which is, if you've never had it before, it can be so valuable for an individual. And we are public health. It's offered from our health department at its sliding scale, so it can be free to very low cost. And when people are at a disadvantage because of their environment, because they are in a food desert, when something like the Kroger closes down, or it may just be the way that the area is set up, or transportation issues. I hate for people to be at a disadvantage, because ideally we all have that health equity where we've got access to healthy foods, to health care. So, a big thing that we focus on, again, is that education component, but also teaching people how to make the most of the resources that are available. Certainly, the lack of grocery store like Kroger makes it difficult, but I can sit down with people and talk about, given your situation, what are some strategies we can kind of use to overcome that, or to really make the most of a trip to the grocery store. If it's a 2-hour, that 2-hour bus ride mentioned, that's heartbreaking to know that there are people that have to go that far out of the way just to get access to the grocery store. But again, working with them
But
with...
if you had that as an example though, so I'm someone, I have a 2-hour commute that I'm going to be on the bus to the grocery store. So what would be your recommendations for me? Let's take me through a little bit of how you might help me decide.
What to pick out, essentially? Yeah, so
Sure.
Again, we're looking at most bang for your buck at that point. You are having to make this huge trek to get something. So certainly talking about items we can get that are very, nutritious for you, but that you can take back, that you can get a lot out of. We're talking with costs, buying in higher volumes, of course, can help a lot. And finding those healthy items that you can buy in a higher volume at a low price. Brown rice is a great example. Brown rice is such an excellent staple that you can add to so many different meals, whether you're pairing it with a vegetarian-based meal or a vegan-based meal like beans and rice, or doing some grilled chicken with some rice. But that's something that if you're buying that brown rice, it's a healthier version of, compared to the white rice. We're getting a good bit of food. It's not something that's very expensive, and bringing that back. And then, of course, we want to be getting more fruits and vegetables. That's something that so many people are lacking. And when you look at those gas stations, that's what they're not offering. It's difficult to stock and to keep up with that. So when you're sending someone to the store, talking about fruits and vegetables, the fresh ones are excellent, but also how can we make healthier choices with the more convenient and shelf-stable ones? A lot of people will kind of look down upon canned vegetables or canned fruits, but if we're selecting canned vegetables that are low in sodium or without added salt, we're still getting so much nutrition from those vegetables. So many, helping properties that come from it, still in the can, still very affordable. Same thing with frozen vegetables, frozen fruits. Now for people on a 2-hour bus ride, you'd certainly, you need to be thinking about how am I transporting this back home? And really it comes down to strategizing, working out, okay, I may have to take a cooler, I may have to get an insulated grocery bag, something like that. And there's no dancing around it. It is more difficult for those people, and it's unfair, quite frankly. But those kind of things, you have to put in that extra work, because at the end of the day, you are investing in your health.
Yeah. Well, and once we get it home, Alesia, who teaches classes, cooking classes, talk about once we get those groceries home and what we're going to do, because tell us a little bit about your background first, what you're doing, and then kind of pick the question up from there.
Okay. With EFNEP, we teach healthy eating on a budget. So I would begin with meal planning. Meal planning is important. That way they're going to save money, of course. So after they've made their selections, and also I teach grocery shopping, save with smart shopping, which is important too as well. So I would begin the process of teaching, and with my program, when they complete the program, they get a nice cookbook like this, Meals in Minutes. And with the extension program, with the food talk, what I do is when I'm teaching healthy eating on the budget, I'm talking about stretching those food dollars, and I'm also dealing with the 4 core areas with improving health with diet quality. There's also food safety. That's another one that's important. Physical activity, and helping them to feel food secure. Not only do I teach them, I also give them resources in the community, so they can go to like a church that may have some groceries once a month. They can go there, and that can help them save money as well. So in addition to teaching and doing the food demonstrations and showing them how easy it is to prepare these meals and how inexpensive it is, I can also give them phone numbers and resources in the community so that they will be able to save money on their groceries, as well as using their SNAP dollars, their ABT dollars, when they're going out, like, for example, to the Mulberry Market to double their dollar. So I'm giving them the tools that they need to succeed.
And who can take your classes? Talk about, who are your classes available for?
Okay. Our classes are available for the individuals who are receiving any type of assistance. For example, if they have a SNAP EBT card, or their children are getting free lunch in school. or WIC for possibility if they're preparing meals for their children, those caregivers. We're looking for those individuals for our program.
Okay. All right, so now, George and Gigi, I'm going to talk to you because both of you coming with vegan, vegetarian, but also you also started mentioning another option, which is growing your own. So I wanted to circle around to you and talk a little bit about that and your own experience with community gardens, because I know you helped and volunteered a little bit with the Pleasant Hill Community Garden. So talk about that as a strategy as well.
True. I think every neighborhood should have a garden. That would be a very helpful thing for the local residents, and to make it easier if every neighborhood in every part of the city the residents in there would come together and to have a neighborhood garden.
What could that look like? Would that look like just community people getting together? Does that look like some type of support system that is at the county level? Like what do you think a community, how could we bring communities together to, put that in motion?
Well, you have the master gardeners that are very helpful, and you have the county extension program, and they will come out and tell you, about your soil, and if you're gonna do beds, they will show you how to do that. They're very helpful with giving you information on how to get started, and it's a good way for people to come together. People, like in your story that you did, one of the things that Mr. Gibbons said over at the Pleasant Hill Community Garden, he wanted to see the elders and the youth come together, and it's a good way for elders and youth to come together and do things together, and kind of just being near each other. There's a reciprocal positive effect that they get from working together. As well as even if the neighborhood doesn't have a garden, you're doing one yourself, and it is a little bit time consuming, but it's very rewarding. It's very therapeutic, and you can see a sense of what you are producing, and then of course all farmers. I don't know any farmers that aren't somewhat spiritual, regardless of their religion, because you see that there's something that's coming up that you have no control over. But you have these elements, the sun and the rain, and the sky and the soil and all these other things working together, and you see the nature. It gets you outdoors, you get some vitamin D. It's a very wonderful thing to do, and at least you can produce some of the vegetables that you would consume, and you learn a whole lot. And children also get an opportunity to learn a whole lot. A lot of children are very disconnected from the earth. A lot of them hardly know really that their food does not come from the grocery store, but it comes from the ground, and so it's just such a wonderful thing to have community gardens. And I really think, and also, the times we live in are they're rather difficult times. There's a lot of unsteadiness going on, and it's good to have something that you can depend on, because sometimes you may go to the grocery store and notice that there's not the shelves are not full, and you start having a question in your mind, well, where's the food? And we can have crises, we can have floods, we can have different things that go on in the country, upheaval. We live in some, shaky times, and it's important not to be so dependent on the grocery store, so dependent on these other outside resources to feed me. If I'm not able to do something to feed myself, and of course our ancestors really could feed themselves. And in fact, it's something I looked at on this the graphic of where the most of the food deserts are. The large concentration in the South, large concentration in Alabama and Louisiana and Georgia and those places, and those are the very places that used to be great producers of farms, great producers of agricultural wealth, and still are. But yet people are living here that are totally disconnected with that legacy and that heritage, and now it's like, okay, we can't but we could. But it's a mindset.
Yeah. And so, and what do you do, how, especially if you were someone living in a food desert, but also you had made the choice of wanting to be vegan or vegetarian even, how would you manage that, in that type of setting?
Well, actually, Macon Vegans is one of the things we're doing is offering workshops. So we have partnered with a local gardening group, Solutions Community Gardeners, and we're going to be offering workshops on container gardening, because not everybody has access to a piece of land too. So that way, if you're living in an apartment, you can, and the workshops will be free to the community, so they can come learn how to make their own gardens in containers, and they'll be able to take home a plant with them and then continue on their own, so that they can have that food. So that, I mean, when I first came here, I did see those issues trying to get the food. So yes, planting my own fruits and vegetables would definitely be the way I would go, simply because without transportation, without being able to get to a store that has fresh produce, really the only option is to just try to grow your own.
And speaking of transportation, I don't want to put you on the spot, but we do also have some other resources. I know there are people sitting in the audience that also have some resources, and I wanted to just point to Jill for a second, not to put you on the spot, but I know you're working on something that I think would be really valuable to kind of share, because it does piggyback on the idea of transportation and people getting a resource to be able to get to the grocery store. So could you talk a little bit about what you're working on?
So the idea is to provide a framework, a network of volunteers or looking at the assets in those neighborhoods that are deemed food deserts, assets such as churches that would have vehicles, and really kind of identifying families that are struggling to get to the grocery store. So the idea is to put in place a network where they could call into a number or have like a predetermined day that we're doing grocery store rounds and get folks from their house to the grocery store. So we've had a lot of talks. Many people in this room have been part of that. We are working on what does that look like? What does the liability look like taking on for volunteers? Is that the right need for folks that are not having reliable or regular transportation? Does that actually fit what they need? So it's moving slow because we want to do it right, but we want to make sure that we're getting the right feedback from the neighborhoods that do have transportation and food desert issues.
Thank you. And speaking of feedback, I'm going to come back to the panel for this, but, Ryan and Alesia, definitely, but also George and Gigi, I'm sure in the communities that you're in, you probably hear from people, and I'm just wondering, because you are working with maybe communities that are facing some of these challenges, what is some of the feedback that you're getting about either what you're teaching them if it's working, or also in general, like what they might need that we don't, as a community, we're not hearing or we're not addressing? Alesia, yeah, sure.
I think that transportation is a very big issue because my program, when I'm teaching at the agency called Family Advancement Ministries, I've had ladies come in and say they may have a problem with transportation. They may not have a ride to come to the next program because mine is done weekly, once a week for an hour. And what they did at Family Advancement Ministries, they did offer bus passes from the city bus, and they would give them passes to come to my program, which I was very happy about. So that they could come and they could learn and get the information that they needed. So transportation is a big problem in this county, and I'm happy to know that Jill is putting a plan into action and working with the churches. I think is a wonderful step to start working. But as a community, I think if we can gather and put our heads together and meet like we did the roundtable meetings, we can come up and help solve the issue. But transportation is important.
I mean, just some things that I've identified and that people have brought up to me. I think certainly transportation, but I think a big thing is kind of some misconceptions surrounding healthy eating in terms of what that is and how it can be obtained. And I'm so thankful for like EFNEP's work and things like that, because you have so many individuals out there who are under the assumption that to eat healthy is so expensive, so expensive. And it can be. If you want to go out and buy multiple avocados every day, you're going to be racking up a pretty big grocery bill. There's no denying that. But I know EFNEP's focus is on that affordability, that recipes that, of course, apply to anyone, a variety of skill levels. And And I think talking to people about that and helping them understand, the difference between if you go to a fast food establishment and you get lunch for one person, and you're spending, maybe $7 or something like that, getting a combo meal, that feels like a complete meal. It feels easy, but then to help them identify through these programs how many groceries you could get for that $7, how many meals that could turn into. And it looks a little more expensive up front, but all those ingredients, you have leftovers, you're saving them. Meal prepping and meal planning is such a big thing. So I think all these programs, these partnerships, like the Macon Vegans, the community work helps just identify some of these misconceptions and help people overcome them as well.
That's important.
Yeah, I think that we need to work on communicating more solutions to people in the neighborhoods. Some neighborhoods, they don't have a problem with transportation. But for those that really do, say for like in this neighborhood, there's a lot of people that have issues with transportation, and there needs to be a lot more of an outreach door to door, person to person, and really going to people's houses and, giving them flyers, talking to them. It would be great if there was some activist organization. I guess I'm making it work for myself. But,
I know, I'm like, well, I mean,
but it'd be great for somebody to, because we have some really positive things going on in the community, and there are several levels on, of course, letting people know about some of the things that exist, but also you can have access to certain sources of food, but you may still not be eating a healthy diet. And that's another thing, is to learn for your own body, what is healthy for you. How to eat to live is a phrase that was coined by the Most Honorable Alesia Muhammad. And in dealing with, a lot of people feel they have to eat a lot of times a day. And one thing that he asked us to do was to prolong your life by not eating so much. We eat one meal a day for the most part, which may sound strange, but then if you're eating just to be eating, or you're eating just because it's breakfast, just because it's lunch, just because this bell's ringing, but are you really hungry? Do you really need to eat right now? And there's a big problem with obesity in this country, and a lot of it is from overeating, a lot of it's from eating improper foods, eating sugar, way too much sugar, and some of these other things. So having a healthy diet, choosing, and I heard you mention the brown rice, and whole wheat grains, and of course vegetables and fruits and seasonal things that are in season, drinking water. A lot of times if you drink water, it will kind of take away some of the hunger. People just tend to say, I just got to eat. It's time to eat. I need a candy bar. I need this. I need that. And a lot of times, really, those things are not helping us. And so we are learning how to eat, how to take care of your health. There's a lot of different diets, different perspectives out there. But I do think so you see some common threads of truth that go through all of them, and learning not to overeat, learning how to manage your health and your family's health. Because I was noticing one thing in studying that the poverty is very high in Macon. Poverty is very high, and there are a lot of women that are severely impacted by poverty, particularly single mothers. And then that becomes a problem with being able to provide a healthy meal for their children, or am I going to work a job that's keeping me out late hours, and I'm not here to make a dinner for them, or I'm not in place to do breakfast, or whatever the question is. These are all serious issues that education, awareness of a better way, perhaps look at possibly this would be a better way for me to manage my nutrition in my household. So
let me ask you something, Gigi. I want you to weigh in here too, and I'll ask you, and then I'll ask the rest of it. And you all can weigh in. But as you're all talking, I'm also thinking about just how do we bring education without also kind of a level of shame, because I do feel like sometimes, just as you were talking about the misconceptions, the misperceptions, I feel like sometimes the way we talk about food and the way we address people about eating and in healthy eating specifically can sometimes sound like we're shaming people, and so I'm just wondering what your thoughts are about that, and if you have any advice or any kind of thoughts around that. And Gigi, I would love to start with you if that's not too much to ask, but yeah.
Sure. I think just sharing your own experiences. really helps. Like for myself, if I stick to a whole foods plant-based and I don't go to like meat substitutes or anything like that, it's actually very inexpensive and affordable to eat that way. If I stick to just fruits and vegetables and grains. One of the services I provide for the community is I go through all of the weekly circulars every week, and I put all of the produce sales together. So you can go to one page and find all the sales and produce of all the grocery stores in the area. And I post this every Thursday. The circulars come out on Wednesday. I try to get it out on Wednesday.
I need to sign up. I need a circular in my life. Okay.
And if you have now again, you need a car to get to all of these grocery stores, or you need to find a ride. But you do your meal plan based on these sales, and you can plan a route. So you can go to the farthest grocery store and make your way back home. This is what I do. But it does save a lot of money. And actually, it may sound like it may be time consuming, but it's not if you plan right. And I think just sharing personal stories with people is a way maybe not to make them feel shamed, because this is just what I do and how I do it, and that's it. But I think that planning is key. Like she brought up before, you really need to plan.
You do. And I agree with what she is saying, because I started grocery shopping when I was 9 as well with my mother, and we would get the circulars just like she did. I still do this. And it's interesting to know that this is the same thing I'm teaching now, and I started this at 9. So it's easier for me to help them. And I also wanted to say, as far as helping and going out in the community and teaching in the community, I was once a single mother that lived in public housing. And I'm not ashamed to say that. But I was determined that it was just going to be temporary, and I was going to find a better job, and I was going to make a better life for my son. And I said that I was not going to stay, and I didn't admit that I was in poverty, but technically I was. And to this day, my son now, who is quite successful, he's a chief in the Navy, he calls me up one day and says, "Mom, why didn't you tell me we were poor?" I said, "Excuse me? You were 4 years old, and I was supposed to tell you that we were poor?" No, as a mother, you don't do that. You survive. And to a lot of the single mothers out there that I am teaching, I understand. I use myself as an example for them. Hey, it's nothing to be ashamed of. You too, can do these things, set your goals a little bit higher, and work from day to day. It is possible. And that's why I let them know there are resources available out there. Sometimes people just don't know who to call or where to go. And they often call the extension office for many things. And that is one of those things. And they're hoping that I am there so that I can tell them. But I leave a resource guide up front when I am not there, so they can get the help that they need for the community.
Ryan, did you have something?
Yeah, and I think certainly going, back to that shame that can sometimes come with that, food is very personal. It's our culture, and I think culture is something that should be celebrated. All cultures, all those traditions, and I think it's about explaining to an individual, that we should celebrate their culture. We should be thankful for all these, where we are, Southern traditions and examples, but kind of talking about how to balance that with our health goals as well. Celebrate your culture, but also celebrate your health and the things that you're thankful for, and support yourself. And I always tell people, one of the most common things I do is teach people how to read nutrition labels. Such a valuable tool. Anyone can do it when you're in the grocery store. You don't need a dietitian there. You don't need anything like that. It's something you can do on your own. And I, will always ask, are you familiar with this? And many people answer that they're not, that it's not something they look at, and that's so okay. If I did not have a formal nutrition education, I would not be looking at nutrition labels, and I'm thankful that I got it, but it's important to understand that not everyone gets exposed to that, and to, meet them where they are and just help further them as much as you can, again, without bringing any shame or any judgment into it.
Yeah, I think we have to be careful with the way we talk to people. Be really, to be sensitive and to help people realize that it's not about how much money you have, whether you're wealthy or not. Wealth is not just, measured in terms of material things, but your health is really a great sign of your wealth. And even if you don't have the strongest health, striving to take care of whatever health that you're blessed with. that is a very important thing and our diet has a lot to do with that. So the more, I think sometimes if you see somebody that just really, they're really hardened into some habits that we, in our limited knowledge, have realized that are not good, then try to help them to see the positive, how something might be a positive benefit for them, but never put anybody down. And I'll always be very sensitive. As sometimes it can happen. I mean, some of us that we become vegetarians, and some of us that don't eat meat and stop eating pork and all that stuff. But I respect everybody. You choose to eat the way you want to eat. You eat the way you want to eat. I eat the way I do because I found out that it worked for me. I found out it worked for my family, and I was really wanting to. As long as I'm here, I've seen like my parents and a lot of people, as they get older, suffer in their elder years, and people suffer from certain diseases, and they go to the doctor. I never want to be dependent on a doctor. I always want to have as much as possible, take charge of my health, and be able to, because you just see a lot of things going on with the pharmaceutical companies, a lot of things going on with the medical industry, and you see people just going through a lot of things that are just very unpleasant, as you very well know, I'm sure. And then we don't we can choose not, hopefully, to go through that. And certain things, the odds, we can lessen the odds that it will happen that way for us, depending on choices we make.
Okay. All right, so it's about 7:15, so I'm going to open it up to questions from you because we'll be wrapping it up in a little bit, and I didn't want to ask all the questions, but I also know that there is, I know because I'm like, I can keep talking to them and just like, but I want to make sure I get your questions in. But I also wanted to point to you, Amir, yes, because I know that you also have some resources in the communities that you work with, and so I just wanted to have you introduce yourself and tell a little bit about some of the resources available that people might not know about as well.
Okay. How's everybody doing? My name is Amir Shahir. I'm a nutritionist, and I work in public health too with WIC. And what we do is we provide basically a service with vouchers. We provide nutritious foods from different food groups. So pregnant women and children from age 0 to 5 can have access to those foods through the WIC vouchers. And that's some of the things that we provide. And we commonly see families that come in that are in need and that are hungry and starving and are really worried and disturbed about how they're going to feed their baby, how they're going to feed their family. And a lot of the single mothers, they focus and their goal daily is just how to feed their child. And we provide that service, and a lot of times it's very helpful. And what we try to do is just make families feel comfortable and not pass on judgment. And one thing that we do probably have to focus on more is, with our vendor relationships with the store, because a lot of families are feeling insecure when they do go to the store and use WIC vouchers. And that's one thing that has to be focused on too, that the families are not judged when they are in the store using.
I know, I was going to ask you, so when you say families feeling insecure using their vouchers, you're talking about in the actual stores with the store owners or management or whomever.
Well, it's not really management, but sometimes, in the store, it takes.
Or just judgment of people in general.
Judgment of people, people in line behind them.
Sure.
Sometimes it takes a while, you have to go through that, and then sometimes you have to be patient with them, and sometimes, a lot of people may not be patient with them because, if you're a new mom, you might not know how to use a voucher or whatever. So, that's just something.
So that's an education for community-wide, right? Like that's
Correct.
People just in general kind
Correct.
of educating around
Correct.
what those challenges might be and to be patient.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I want to open it up for questions. Are there any questions? Did you all have any questions for the panel or anything else to add?
I
Yes.
have some questions.
Oh, all right.
For everybody, different questions for each person.
Okay.
I don't know. Should I ask them all?
Yes, go for it.
Fire away.
I'm going to go for it.
Okay. For Ms. Mays, how you doing this
Hi.
evening? Well, my question for you is concerning the use of the microwave. I know you're a cook and everything, so my question is concerning you with microwaving and the use of the microwave, because I know a lot of times, people don't have time to cook.
Okay.
But what's some of your suggestions there and what you're feeling in that in terms of families and using
Okay. With families using the microwave, some of the recipes we have for EFNEP, the Expanded Food Nutrition and Education Program, you can use them in the microwave. So hopefully that will help you. So not only are they inexpensive, you can use them on the stove, in a skillet, as well as in the microwave. So isn't that great? In a short amount of time.
And my question for Gigi, did I get it right? I didn't get your last name. Being a vegan in Macon, can you talk about your experience of being a vegan in Macon? Because I know, my brother, he's a vegan, and when he comes down, I try to find things where he can even accommodate him. And a lot of things I'm finding are Indian restaurants, but he's not really big on Indian food, which is his preference. And that's my question about that.
I want to say things have changed and have gotten better since I first got to Macon. I first got to Macon about a dozen years ago. When I first got here, there really weren't very many options. Even at the grocery stores, the fruits and vegetables, the produce was not very fresh, I found. The quality has gotten better. The variety has gotten larger. As far as food options in restaurants are concerned, we do have a lot more options now. It's not just the Indian restaurants, because I know when I first got here, that was it for me too. I ate a lot of Indian food. But we do have a lot of options, and that's one of the things that my organization tries to do too, is share with the public the places you can go to find vegan products and vegan options. We do have one vegan restaurant by the Farmers Market on Eisenhower, the Macon State Farmers Market. That's Southern Vegan Soul Cafe, and they do Southern style food, but it's all vegan, made from scratch. Then we also have, aside from the Indian restaurant, we've got many places downtown now. But again, eating out can be expensive, and a lot of these places, may put a dent in your wallet. But we do have more grocery store options. We don't just have Kroger or Publix. We've got the Fresh Market. There's Mulberry Market you can go to, and if you do have SNAP benefits, they will double them, which is really great that they do that. Yeah, I want to say that there's a lot more options, and we do try to promote that. To let the community know what is out there and what is available. So we have monthly meetups, and we try to have them in a different location every month to let people know what's out there for them as a vegan and a plant-based eater, because that's really what we're trying to promote. Because you can be a junk food vegan, like what I have right here, or you can eat whole foods. Plant-based.
And Mr. Muhammad, with the community garden, who has access to the garden? Who all has access to the garden?
The one in Pleasant Hill, the community residents, and he often, Peter Givens often brings in other students from Mercer, the Passport program in the summer. And really, you can buy a plot and work your own plot. You can rent a plot and work your own plot and raise your own vegetables in that garden. So that's the way he works there.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And Ryan, well, I'll probably talk to you.
Okay, just to the side. Okay. Okay.
We'll catch up.
All right. Any other questions? I saw you shaking your head at some point, talking about something. So
I work for a nonprofit, and our main goal is increasing access to fresh produce. So I just totally
I'll
get all of this.
That's who do you
I
work
work
with?
for. I don't think a lot of people know that we are in BIB, but we work across the state of Georgia. I work for Help Empowers.
Okay.
So Help, the letter N, Empowers.
Okay.
Our office is up in Norcross, Atlanta. I live in Milledgeville, and have been working with Baldwin for the last 3 years, and this past year we took on BIB. So we do a lot of stuff, and our focus is kind of changing, but most of our employees work with the school system. So we've been in the Bibb County school system for, I think, going on 4 years now, doing education with the kids. But my job is more in the community, reaching adults. So the kids are getting this education, but they can't just get it at school, they've got to get it at home too. So we're trying to do education, we do nutrition education classes, we do taste testings, we just started working with some of the food pantries here, we work with Macon Outreach, Rescue Mission, we work with the Mulberry Market, we were there yesterday doing taste testing, do a lot, let's see, something that we work with retail stores, I don't know if y'all noticed, you probably weren't paying attention, but she was at my store and some of our marketing is in that store. We work with that store. Trying to work with small convenience stores that don't have any fresh produce or anything. It's kind of been one of the things we're doing that we're kind of struggling with because a lot of the store owners are not, they're kind of not really interested in adding anything new. We've done customer surveys and the customers say, yeah, we'll buy it if they have it, but they're just, I think they're afraid to put more in the store, especially fresh produce. They're scared it's not going to, no one's going to buy it. And I think that there are some stores we've worked with that have tried it and it's gone bad, and so there's a lot of issues with that. We've had a lot better success with the bigger stores. Like my store, he's got produce, so we do taste testings with what he has, and we've got marketing images in those stores to kind of like cross-promotional things, like if you're going to buy oatmeal, go buy some strawberries to put in your oatmeal. So stuff like that. We've got billboards up around the community. I don't know if anyone's seen them.
And say the name one more time.
Health Empowers.
Health Empowers. Okay.
Yes.
Health Empowers.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just want to make sure we say it loud. So
Yeah.
right here. Health Empowers. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thanks for adding that. Any other questions? Oh, yes.
This is for really any of the panelists or any of the other groups that are here recognize or that are working on access issues. What is your sense of the need in the community versus the people that are actually seeking out assistance? Like, do you feel like most people that have access issues are getting help, or do they know about resources that are out there?
I want to say that I want to speak about the Hispanic community with regards to that. I've found that in the Hispanic community, they are unaware of a lot of the resources that are available. Because there are some resources out there to help, but they're just unaware. And I feel like that's probably not unique to the Hispanic community. There's kind of a disconnect, I guess, there between the resources and the people who need them.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people that don't know about the resources, and that was one of the reason I was saying what I was saying earlier about we need to go door to door in the neighborhoods and really, pass out flyers, have, events. It may be an event that is festive, for some event that would draw large numbers of people out and pass that information out. And then, when I hear that term, food desert, I still think about more than just the fact that it isn't a grocery store. Because, I don't want to speak bad about Harvey's, but I mean, I think she was alluding to this, the quality of fruits and vegetables. It has gotten better. But, we've had, the J&Ls, they tore it downtown. I don't know if you all know about that store. It was, downtown near DFAX. A lot of times the grocery stores don't really have they wouldn't have the best quality stuff. And then people are going in, just like people go to Family Dollar or they go to whatever's available and they just take what's there. But, I know when I go, if you don't have nice quality, I'm not going to use it. I can't use it. I don't want to eat that. I really want to give my body the best. And I think when people begin to think that way, I know that I'm valuable and more than just I'm valuable, but I want to take care of what I have. Then I want the best. And so that kind of mindset, I think a lot of people don't realize that they actually are almost starving nutritionally. A lot of people don't realize they really are what they're eating is not helping them at all. And it leads in a few years, certain other diseases begin to crop up, and it's like, wow, I didn't know I was sick. And it's because people for a long time just never have been given the education and the knowledge about how to eat better and how to have a better quality of diet.
I believe that from what I have found, there are many people who do not know where to find the resources. Because a lot of times I go, oh, before you come to class today, please bring your resource list. There's some people that need some help here at this agency. So I'm having to bring it a lot more than I used to because there are so many people in need in this county. And like he said, I studied and I read about the poverty rate and how high it is and about the homeless students. I did encounter that in one of the schools where I was teaching. So I did provide the information to help those families that needed that help and talked with that family engagement specialist and gave her some information to help them. And she came back and she said they did use the information, they really needed it. So there is a need for education, and that's why I consider myself one of the main encouragers and educators in this county, trying to reach them. But the idea is trying to go out and get the word out so that people will know where to come. And that's why we do need to have group meetings and different places where we can meet, so we can meet this need, because we really have a serious, serious need here in this county.
Yes.
This is a little close to what you were talking about. You mentioned the poorness of the produce. Have you found also in that, in these places, that the food tends to be higher priced, and that they're taking more advantage of population that does not have the economical things that some of the areas in Macon may have? Are you seeing that as well, that they are marking those prices up and it's poor quality, so that we're really dealing with two things?
Yeah.
It seems like.
Yeah, it can be expensive to eat healthy. Sometimes it can be a little bit expensive. But I notice, like, say I go to Fresh Market sometime, and their prices are, to me, their stuff is marked up. Even though I like to go in there and the music sounds good and you're feeling nice and all that, you know. but you know, you look at the price and you really think about it. And I think, and learn another thing that people, all of us, need to be conscious of, and I think that will help to impact the grocery industry, the way they handle, because I feel like they mishandle the community personally. The way I feel like Kroger mishandled the community. I think when we become better consumers, we're wiser consumers. When we know better how to what we need, what we want, what products are good. Because sometimes vegetables that are even in the grocery store, they may be irradiated, or they they may not even be really what you think it is. That has been a recurrent thing. That's why this whole thing about genetically modified and all these issues. People have to really learn to have a very discerning eye as to what they choose. And again, I think learning to not overeat. Of course, you don't want to be hungry, but I think some people have had a habit of overeating and just eat until I'm just let me fall asleep, or I'm just full, or just can't move, and is that really necessary? And I think a lot of it's conditioning, and it takes time. It really takes time. And I erred before when I said I have been vegetarian for 36 years. I started out getting off all meat, and then probably by the past 25 years, it was a gradual evolution to chicken and fish. Then turkey, the turkey wieners and the turkey burgers and all that stuff. And after a certain point, say no more meat at all. We just gotta go straight vegetables. And it's a journey. I mean, and whatever works for you, because everybody's not gonna be a vegetarian. Everybody's not gonna eat the same way. And as it goes back to your thing about shaming people, we don't wanna be, making people feel like, well, just because you eat meat, there's something wrong with you. Or if you're a vegetarian or you're a vegan or whatever, I mean, you have to accept people. Let people choose to be who they want to be, But again, to your point, I do think some places the costs are higher, and you kind of have to figure out where you're going to get the best deals,
And that's what I felt maybe part of the problem came from is that we have in this community that sense that I have to eat this stuff that's not good for me because it's the cheaper stuff to get. And I know Ryan, you might have brought that up as well. But you can, if you plan it out, you can look at your circulars and you can get the produce that's on sale
Planning.
and get the good fresh that hasn't been irradiated and the non-GMO. But I think it's just been for so long, that's just been the way it is, that we've all been thinking. It's that the unhealthy foods are the quickest, cheapest route to go, and they don't have access to an affordable, healthy choice.
And to answer your question further, I also work with teens, 9th through 12th grade, and recently with the Power of the Knot at Southwest High School, and I was teaching smart shopping, and I asked the teenagers, do you think it's healthy? Do you think it's expensive to eat, to eat healthier foods? And a lot of them said yes. 1 or 2 said no, but the other half said yes. They think it is. And that's why I talked to them about buying in season. Strawberries are in season. You can buy them, you can freeze them. And that's one of the things that we teach to help you to save money. And when you're going out and you're buying your fruits and vegetables, and nobody has mentioned Aldi, they are wonderful to buy your fruits and vegetables. I mean, they know me personally, management, everybody, because I'm always talking about telling my clients, go to Aldi, you want to buy cheap fruits and vegetables. But the thing about going to Aldi, you have to go early because everybody else is going to get there. They're going to get those good deals. So I encourage them to go early and not wait till late afternoon. But I do know they get trucks almost every day now, so I can say that. And that is a place that I do, one of the places that I like to shop as well, because you're going to get a good buy. And I like finding a good buy. My family called me Miss Frugal, because if it's on sale, I'm going to find it and I'm going to buy it. And then in my program, we're always asking, if you know anything on sale, let us know and let me know so that I can let others know as well.
I'm a coupon lady, so it's okay. It's called the coupon lady. But yeah, I have a friend who's about 60. She has not been able to work. She had knee surgery.
Yeah, see?
She's had to go on food stamps.
See?
But she, and I don't know how she does it with bad knees, she has developed in her yard tiers and is growing different types of vegetables on those tiers. She's a brilliant woman, and she doesn't get a lot of food stamps. I'm sorry, I'm all over this with the tan is horrible. But she uses it very wisely, so that when she goes to the store, she's already got that produce at home that she's going to go pick right out of her backyard, so that she has, she can use what she's getting from the government to keep herself healthy. And I think that's why at 60 she is doing better than me.
See?
I'm not that much younger than her, but still, I'm very proud of that, and she teaches me. Now, I'm a nurse, but she teaches me what I need to be doing, because she is so smart about that kind of thing. And I just wish we could get so many more of our community to be like that.
I do want to jump back real quick to, I agree with so much of what you guys said, a lot of excellent points. I do want to jump back real quick to some of the fruits and vegetables that we talked about, though. And this is just something I encourage people to exercise a little caution around the way we can word certain things. Certainly, I'm a fan of local produce. I think community gardens are excellent. Supporting your local farmers and your local economy is a very, very excellent thing to do. But especially when we're looking at people who have limited resources and limited access, some of the talk and phrasing we use with things like non-GMO, with things like organic versus not organic options, it can sometimes create this divide where people of lower income or lower access may feel like they can't eat healthy because the organic brand is $1 or $2 more, or they're concerned over GMOs. And what I just try to make very apparent, the reason we encourage fruits and vegetable intake is, it reduces our risk of a number of chronic diseases from things like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancer, and the studies that have shown that do not separate organic versus not organic, GMO versus non-GMO. So the big takeaway that I always give people is more fruits and vegetables is what we need. If you know, again, if you want to support local economy, that's fantastic. We should definitely do more of that. And if you choose to buy organic and you can, that's excellent as well. But again, I just like to encourage people to use a little bit of caution with some of those terms, because again, we don't want to shame people. We don't want to make people feel like they're at a spending level that can't compete or can't access healthy things, because fruits and vegetables they're great, you know.
Good
point.
We're all here in this room at an advantage in that we do know non-GMO. A lot of the people that we're trying to help may not understand that.
It's jargon to them, yeah.
They've heard us say, you know, that the people that are trying to get out there and help everybody, and we think we're doing well, and we use, like you just said, the non-GMO, and they're thinking, okay, that's not good. And we're not really helping them as much as we think we are, because we are doing so much of that. And that's a great point.
Regular apple is better than a bag of chips.
That's right.
All right, a regular apple is better than a bag of chips. I think that's where we ended. I think we're good. But no, thank you all so much. This has been very, very insightful, and I've truly enjoyed listening to you all and your experiences and what you bring to the table and the resources, and all of them, the resources that they all work with agencies, they work together, they work with a lot of different programs. The bags in the back, please make sure you pick up one or two if you like. And they have lots of information. There's a resource page in there, a one sheet that talks about ways you can help if you want to help. And then there are also resources for people looking for help. So there's both in there. Please take a bag with you. There's probably some food back there. Please take some of that with you if you like as well. And yeah, thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Gigi. Thank you, Alesia. Thank you, George. Give them a hand clap. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
I just want to invite everybody who has information for the community that might want to share information to come out to the Juneteenth Freedom Festival. We have a festival Saturday, June 15th. It's from 1 to 9:30 p.m. and it's in Tatnall Square Park. So it's a very nice setting. It's a lot of music and performing arts. And it's all about information and education. So anybody that in this room that may have some information to share about programs that you're offering, services, resources.
Lots of bags that you can take. You could take some of the bags with you, and it has all kinds of goods in there.
Okay.
I'm gonna load you up. I'm like, yay, there's somewhere we can
Well, we'd love for y'all to come Saturday, June the 15th. We'd love for y'all to come and set up a table and promote your organization. All right.
Love to be there.
All right.
I'm Ryan.
Yeah.
To be there, so just send us that information.
All right, fantastic. Well, thank you again. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Appreciate you
you
for inviting
coming
me.
in. Please take a bag. Please take food.